You open your eyes, no phone buzzing, no alarm screaming, no Slack notification telling you someone needs something right now. You just wake up because your body is done sleeping. You look outside. The sun is low. Birds are loud. The air smells like last night's fire. And you ask yourself one simple question. What do I actually feel like doing today? Not what's due, not what your boss needs, not what's on the calendar. Just what do you want? Here's the thing. For the first 300,000 years of human existence, that was the only question that mattered every single morning. And the answer? It looked nothing like your Monday. The average American will spend roughly 90,000 hours working over the course of their lifetime. Let that sink in for a second. 90,000 hours. That's about 1/3 of every waking moment you'll ever have handed over to an employer, a client, a system. And we just accept that. We call it normal. We call it responsible. We call it adulting. But here's what's wild. For 99% of human history, that concept didn't exist. No jobs, no wages, no boss, no performance reviews, no 2 weeks notice. So what were people actually doing with all that time? In 1963, anthropologist Richard Lee embedded himself with the Ju-Hoansi people of Botswana, one of the few remaining groups still living a lifestyle that closely mirrors pre-agricultural human life. What he found completely upended everything researchers thought they knew. Adults spent an average of 17 hours per week securing food. That's it. 17 hours. Less than most Americans work in 2 days. The rest of the time? Unstructured, unscheduled, theirs. And this wasn't some lucky outlier. Researchers found the exact same pattern across completely unconnected groups, the Hadza in Tanzania, the Aceh in Paraguay, the Martu in Western Australia. Different continents, different climates, different languages, same result every single time, about 15 to 20 hours per week on survival. Everything else was up to them. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but those are modern people. How do we actually know ancient humans lived the same way? The answer is written in their skeletons. When archaeologists compare the remains of hunter-gatherers to the earliest farming populations, the physical differences are dramatic and consistent. Early farmers were shorter. Their bones show clear signs of nutritional deficiency. Their teeth were riddled with decay from grain-heavy diets. Their spines showed damage from years of repetitive, back-breaking labor. And they died younger, significantly younger. The hunter-gatherer skeletons? Taller, denser bones, healthier joints, better teeth. Their bodies weren't worn down the same way. And that tells us something important. They weren't grinding themselves into the ground just to survive. But here's where it gets really interesting. If early humans were constantly on the edge of survival, scrambling for food, barely getting by, then explain this. In 1994, a group of explorers discovered Chauvet Cave in southern France. Inside, protected for roughly 36,000 years, were paintings, not scratches, not symbols, horses mid-gallop rendered with perspective and shadow, lions with muscle definition, rhinoceroses that looked alive. These were created by someone with skill, with patience, with artistic intention. Someone walked deep into a dark cave, set up firelight, and spent hours, maybe days, painting animals on a wall. Not for food, not for survival, for something else entirely. In Blombos Cave, South Africa, archaeologists uncovered shell beads dating back 100,000 years. Each one had a tiny hole precisely drilled through it. They were clearly meant to be strung and worn. The nearest ocean? 50 miles away. Someone made a 100-mile round trip just to collect shells, then spent hours carefully crafting jewelry with stone tools. Because they wanted to look good. In 2008, researchers in Germany uncovered a 40,000-year-old flute carved from a vulture bone. 5 finger holes, evenly spaced. Whoever made it understood pitch, understood music, understood that sound could be organized into something beautiful. These people had time. Enough time to make things beautiful. Enough time to make music. Enough time to create art that would survive for tens of thousands of years. So let's actually reconstruct what a typical day looked like. You wake up at dawn. Not because an alarm told you to, because that's when the light and sound of your environment naturally pull you awake. The fire from last night is still going. Someone adds wood without being asked. You eat something left over from yesterday, dried meat, some nuts, maybe fruit if it's in season. Breakfast is social. People talk. There's no agenda, no commute, no rush. You just exist together for a while. Mid-morning, a small group might head out to hunt or gather. But, and this is the part we always miss, you don't go every single day. If the last hunt went well and there's food, you might stay in camp entirely. You might spend the morning sharpening tools, repairing gear, or working on something you've been crafting. There's no supervisor, no time card. You do it because being skilled at things matters, because competence earns respect, because making something well feels good. If a hunt does happen, it doesn't look like the chaotic chase you've seen in movies. Humans are persistence hunters. We're the only species on the planet that can effectively run prey into exhaustion because we sweat and regulate our body temperature while moving in ways most animals simply cannot. We outlast them. A hunt might take 3 to 6 hours, including the walk there and back. Then the animal is processed and shared. Everyone eats. And by early afternoon, the productive part of the day is essentially finished. What comes next is what modern people struggle most to imagine. Rest. Real rest. People sit in the shade. They talk not about productivity or plans, but just because talking feels good. They groom each other, a behavior that in humans functions as deep social bonding. They play with children. They nap without guilt. They work on small creative projects, carving, beading, decorating objects they use every day. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner documented that among the Jew, Hoansi, adults spend roughly 6 hours daily in what researchers simply call social time. Not working, not sleeping, just being with people. And this isn't wasted time. In a world without contracts or legal systems, your relationships are literally your survival insurance. If people value you, they share with you when things get hard. So you invest not in a LinkedIn network, but in actual human bonds. Then the sun goes down, and this is where something remarkable happens. Polly Wiesner spent years analyzing recorded conversations from the Jew Hoansi people. During the day, conversations were practical: where to find water, who saw tracks, where complaints about fairness in food sharing. But at night, around the fire, 81% of conversations shifted completely. Stories, myths, tales of ancestors who did things that seemed impossible, jokes that made the whole group erupt, dreams and speculation about places no one had ever been. Wiesner argued this is where human culture was actually born, the concept of gods, of history, of a world that extends beyond what you can directly see and touch. These ideas don't emerge when you're hungry and stressed. They emerge when you're warm, full, and safe sitting in the dark with the people you love. And when sleep finally came, it didn't look like yours either. Sleep researchers and historians, analyzing medieval European records, independently confirmed what we now call biphasic sleep. Before artificial light, humans naturally slept in 2 phases, roughly 4 hours, then a wakeful period of 1 to 2 hours in the middle of the night, then another 4 hours. That middle window, calm, dark, quiet, wasn't insomnia. It was reflection time, prayer, intimacy, thinking. The kind of thinking that only happens when everything else goes silent. Then, about 10,000 years ago, something shifted that changed our species forever. Humans in the Fertile Crescent started planting seeds. And agriculture is, in the most literal sense, a trap. Once you start farming, you can support a larger population. A larger population needs more food. More food requires more farming. Within a few generations, the numbers are too large to go back. There are too many mouths to feed through hunting and gathering. You are locked in. And farming is hard, brutally, relentlessly hard. Plowing fields, planting by hand, weeding constantly, harvesting before weather destroys everything, defending crops from animals, insects, and other people, storing food through winter without it rotting. The skeletal record is unambiguous. Early farmers worked harder, were less healthy, and died younger than their hunter-gatherer predecessors. But the population kept expanding, and with bigger populations came specialization: craftspeople, traders, soldiers, priests, administrators, and eventually, the invention that would restructure human existence entirely: the job. The idea that your time belongs to someone else in exchange for the resources to survive. By the time we built the first cities, the original human experience was already gone. Here's what I want you to actually sit with. You work 90,000 hours over your lifetime. Your ancestors worked a fraction of that. You sleep in 1 block. And if you wake up at 2 and unable to fall back asleep, you call it a sleep disorder. They slept in 2 phases and used the quiet middle hours to think, to connect, to simply exist. You chase success, money, status, achievement, the markers of a life well lived according to standards that were invented recently by a system that benefits when you keep working. They woke up every single morning already free. They didn't need to become something. They already were something. The art, the music, the jewelry, The stories, these weren't hobbies squeezed between responsibilities. They were just life. You make art if you can find time after work. They made art because time was what they had most of. We are not a fundamentally different species than the people who painted those cave walls 36,000 years ago. We have the same brains, the same need for connection, the same drive to create and rest and belong. But we've built a world so far removed from the one we evolved for that we spend our entire lives working toward a retirement that looks almost exactly like the life our ancestors simply woke up into every morning. The question isn't whether we can go back. We can't. The world is too big, the population too large, the system too entrenched. The real question is knowing all of this. What do you do with your Tuesday?